Call the September 20th Board of Commissioners meeting to order. Thank you all for coming tonight. Our first order of business is invocation by County Manager Ms. Sharon Russell.
Thank you so much, Chairman Bright and Commissioners. Good evening. Let us pray. Dear Heavenly Father, we thank you for this opportunity to come before you and conduct the business of Onslow County. Lord, please be with the commissioners tonight in their deliberations and bless them with wisdom and guidance as they address the items on tonight's agenda. Father, we pray for the men and women in our armed forces who serve our country with tremendous courage, commitment, and sacrifice. May all we do this day bring you honor and glory. Now, with deep respect and reverence for the faiths, beliefs, and traditions of those gathered here tonight, join me in a moment of silence. Amen.
A pledge by Assistant County Manager Ms. Sherry Slater. Please stand.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'd like to welcome Sheriff Miller, as always, for being here tonight, sir. Ms. Susan Meyer from North Topsail Beach Alderman, she's here. Thank you for being here. And Ms. Omega Jarman, our Register of Deeds. Thank you, Omega, for being here. And also Colonel Chris Thomas, our Chief Deputy from Onslow County Sheriff. Thank you, sir. We ask all in attendance to please set your cell phones to silent or vibrate mode. The board offers the public one opportunity to speak during the meeting. Comments should be limited to no more than 5 minutes and may be on any issue upon which the Board of Commissioners has control. In accordance with the board's adopted rules of procedure, commissioners shall reserve responses, if any, for the commissioner comment period on the agenda, and that's at the end of the meeting. With no other items being considered.
Chairman Bright, I'd like to make a motion to amend the agenda to remove item 5G, land purchase.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor of amending the agenda signify by saying aye.
Aye. Motion to approve the agenda as amended.
I hear a second.
Second.
All in favor of the motion to amend the agenda and adopt the amended agenda signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Any item that the commissioners would like to have removed for discussion later on the agenda? Hearing none, a motion is in order to approve the items on the consent agenda.
Motion approved.
A motion and a second. All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Item 3 is public comment. Ms. Russell, anyone signed up?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. We have one citizen who has signed up to speak tonight during our public comment period. As a reminder, those who are called forward for public comment have exactly 5 minutes. We do ask that you respectfully take your seat after the timer goes off after 5 minutes. Please keep your language professional and address your comments to the board as a whole and not to one commissioner individually. In addition, as a reminder, the commissioners do not respond during the public comment period or during public hearings. They withhold any comments that they may have until the end of the meeting for commissioner comments. At this time, I would like to welcome Ms. Debbie Wolslegel of 209 Joey Court in Hubert. If you could come to the podium and announce your name and your address.
My name is Debbie Wolslegel, 209 Joey Court, Hubert. Well, since you guys removed number 5 for the land purchase, then there's really no sense of me talking about the land purchase, but if it's planning on being in a future one, I just noticed that you guys had put it out there that you were going to purchase it. Then you said, you put out an announcement that you weren't going to, but then when you guys put it back on the agenda, you just put the purchase parcel, the parcel number on there. So unless somebody looks that up, they wouldn't know it was the same thing you guys were talking about. So I want to make sure everybody is aware that you need to look up the parcel number to show that you guys have been talking about this for a while, and it's like you're going back and forth. So I just want the people that are listening or watching to know that we really have to watch what you guys are putting out there, because it looked like you were trying to slide it in. So that's the way it looks to me. So, but now it's off the thing, but I will be watching to see if it comes back on the agenda in the future. Thank you.
Anyone else?
Thank you, Ms. Wilslagel. That is our only speaker for this evening. That concludes our public comment period. Thank you.
Okay, we have a public hearing scheduled for rezoning.
Yes, sir. Chairman Bright, Commissioners, we have 2 public hearings this evening for rezoning cases. And our first one is PREZ-2021-00003, the Scott rezoning. And at this time, I'd like to recognize our Director of Planning, Jessica Rhue, who will give the staff background and recommendation.
Thank you so much. Good evening, Chairman, Vice Chairman, and Commissioners. Tonight, I'll be presenting to you the staff report for our 3rd rezoning request for 2021. This is a request to rezone 3 parcels from residential 8M to community business. This has been submitted by Ira Scott on behalf of the owners, Timothy and Terry Evans, and these 3 parcels total about 1.36 acres and are located on Dawson Cabin Road. Currently, the property we are discussing for a potential rezoning is undeveloped. It does have Onwassa water access. It would be serviced by the Verona Fire Department, and our traffic counts are under capacity as of our 2019 data. This is our beautiful new zoning map. The parcels that are highlighted in red are R8M. These are the 3 parcels in question. To the north, you can see there is R15, that's single-family zoning. The green flanking the image on the screen is RA, and we have some military-owned property in this vicinity as well. This is another view of our vicinity map here at the intersection. If we were to scroll this map all the way to the right, we would get to Highway 17. The current zoning is residential 8M. That means we allow single family, we allow multifamily, and we allow manufactured housing there at a density of 10 units per acre. The request is to change these 3 parcels to community business, which maintains that 10 units per acre density, however, would introduce small-scale commercial developments to be requested for permits in that area. This is our future land use map. It designates this whole area as rural residential. Here's 2 images staff took of the actual property making the request. This request is supported by our land use plan, our comprehensive plan, and that is because we have policies in that plan that encourage commercial nodes of development at major rural intersections. Our planning board reviewed this request on August 5th. There were no public comments, and they did recommend unanimously approval of the change. Thank you so much.
Motion to approve?
Oh,
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, Commissioner Scott. If you give us just a moment, we by statute need to go ahead and open the public hearing even though no one has signed up. So at this time, and thank you, Ms. Rhue, I would like to open the public hearing on this matter and ask if the applicant would like to make a statement.
Don't believe the applicant's here tonight.
Okay, and would anyone else like to make a statement on this matter of rezoning? Seeing none, at this time, I will close the public hearing, and this item is now available for commissioner discussion and decision.
Motion to approve?
Second. A motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion to approve signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. I think the next one is yours also.
Sure is. All right, this evening we have for your consideration updates to our minimum housing ordinance, which I am very excited to report is the fourth and final ordinance requiring a 160D update. This is not a new ordinance before you, it is a repackaged one. Onslow County has enforced minimum housing standards since 2003, and relatively recently, in 2016, the original ordinance went through a major modernization. However, despite that modernization, 160D updates and the adoption of that at the state level necessitated some minor modifications to references and terminology. And additionally, on top of that, while we were making these 160D revisions, staff went ahead and formatted this ordinance in the same fashion as the floodplain subdivision and zoning ordinances. So now our entire library now navigates in the same way, and it's much easier for staff and the public to use. So what this ordinance does, it regulates the state standards on health and safety for rental property. Very simply, these regulations enable tenants to seek assistance if their landlord refuses to make repairs on items that are regulated under the ordinance. And they are truly minimal standards. They are nowhere near as stringent and comprehensive as a building code, for example. So just for audience awareness, typically after we receive a concern from a current tenant residing in a building, the officer schedules a site visit and contacts the landlord to advise them of the complaint. If violations are in fact found during that visit, a hearing notice is sent to the landlord, and it outlines the violations that were observed, and a meeting is subsequently held where those violations are reviewed. After that takes place, the landlord is asked to let us know their intentions, whether they want to take the property out of the rental market or they agree within a timeline to make the repairs that are necessary to meet the minimum standards of this ordinance. And so, of course, as with any ordinance, the legal processes for various scenarios, if there's non-compliance, are also included in that text. And so our planning board received a presentation on this ordinance update on August 5th and unanimously recommended adoption. It's been reviewed and edited by our county attorney, and it is respectfully requested the Board of Commissioners consider adoption of ZTA 2021 number 2 and its consistency statement, repealing the ordinance adopted on May 16th, 2016, and replacing it with the NCGS 160D compliant minimum housing ordinance, and if approved, authorize the chairman to sign necessary documents on behalf of the county. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Rhue. At this time, I'd like to open the public hearing regarding the adoption of the updated minimum housing ordinance, ZTA 2021-0002. Would anyone like to approach the podium to speak on this approval, pending approval of the updated minimum housing ordinance? Seeing no one, I will close the public hearing at this time, and now this is available for commissioner discussion and consideration.
A motion?
To approve.
Motion.
Yeah. Second.
My motion and a second. Discussion.
So will this help us with any of the dilapidated houses in the county?
Ms. Rhue?
This ordinance would apply to a building that someone is residing in, and unfortunately, as far as a condemnation would go, that would be a completely different process. This ordinance is truly to protect tenants. If a landlord elects to vacate the property and secure it, this would not help with that, no.
Has there been, how many, this is very similar to what we already had in our minimum housing. Is there any specific changes in this versus what we had before, just bringing it under 160D?
No, sir. This
So it's
is
uniform statewide?
It is uniform. We had to change the state references, and the state law changed, so those references were incorrect. We had some definitions we needed to update, and then, as I pointed out, we reorganized it so it was easier to use, and it's set up and looks like just like our other 3 ordinances.
Okay. Any further? Any other questions or concern? We have a motion and a second. All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion carries. Thank you,
Thank you.
Ms. Rhue. We are now to item 5A. That's Ms. Russell on Coastal Carolina Community College carryover funds.
Thank you so much, Chairman and Commissioners. This evening, there are two items that were brought to me by Mr. David Heatherly, the president of Coastal Carolina Community College. Both of these issues would be within the realm of your authority and not mine, and I bring these forward tonight for your consideration on his behalf. Mr. Heatherly is in the audience to answer any questions that you may have. The first issue to consider is that of carryover funds. As authorized by North Carolina General Statute 115D-32, this Board of Commissioners provides funding to Coastal Carolina Community College as part of our annual budget process. This year, CCCC is requesting to carry forward $628,381.96 in funds that were approved for use in fiscal year 2020 through 2021, which just ended on June 30th. These funds of approximately $628,000 have not yet been expended. If it were carried over into the current fiscal year, President David Heatherly has indicated that the requested funds would be used for renovations to the library, auto body paint storage room, automotive lab exhaust system, dental lab, North Academy Drive, Bear Creek, campus signage replacement, and safety and security related items. At this time, I respectfully request that the Board of Commissioners consider this item, allowing Coastal Carolina Community College to carry over the previously appropriated funds, and if approved, authorize the county manager to sign the appropriate documents.
Do I have a motion?
I make a motion to return the funds of $628,318.96.
I have a
I'm
second.
not sure I understand that motion to return the funds to the county, or you say?
Right, return the funds back to the county and go in that amount.
And as a point of clarity, Commissioner Scott, $628,381.96.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, sir.
Let me understand this right. So it's coming back to us?
Yes, sir.
Is that what you're asking? My only comment is, in the federal government, if you got until October 30th to spend your money, and if you don't spend it, it's gone. There's no carryover. And I know that working narcotics, we'd had a certain amount of money, and then it was gone the next day. But my question is, you have $628,000, I'm reading this, and you plan to use this money for this and that and all that. When you knew the fiscal year was fast approaching, why didn't you spend that money then and there on those particular projects that you're itemizing now? That's my question. I'm not trying to be a pain, but I'm reading this kind of an after action, you know. We plan to use this money for the renovations to the library, auto body, paint storage, automated lab, exhaust system, dental lab, North Academy, et cetera, et cetera. I think that would have been a priority before the deadline of the fiscal year, so that you would start to dedicate those funds for those particular projects now to get them done instead of waiting to the carryover. And carryover funds are pretty dangerous, and I'm not making any comments, but you know, people can view that as kind of a blanket, you know, kind of a fund that they can have that people can fall back on, which I don't think is appropriate. You have a certain amount that has to be spent by a certain date. You've got to abide by the law and spend that money, or you lose it. That's just my take on it.
I'd like to address some of that to Dr. Heatherly. I mean, we all sign contracts and don't pay until the work's done. Is that money already? Is that our money already committed to contracts, Dr. Heatherly?
Yes, as a matter of fact, the entire amount was completely encumbered as of June 30. Many of those projects, as our county manager has mentioned, were well underway and near completion. So it's a matter of having already signed contracts and finishing those projects which had been underway for a considerable amount of time. Every penny was encumbered on June 30.
See, we had, I'm looking at this spreadsheet, and it kind of concerns me because, it looks like we've allowed carryover funds for the community college since at least 2013. And it's not been an issue apparently for the county. I don't remember hearing anything about it until just a couple of years ago. And I guess in spring of 2020, when all this started, we were real concerned about what kind of revenue we were going to have just starting out in this COVID thing. And I can understand that back in 2020, we asked the community college to refund some of the money that they did not spend during the fiscal year, but it's obvious that this has been a practice that's been going on for years and years. And the next item on our agenda is funding almost $2 million for the library. I can't see why. I know we're not likely to fund $2 million for the library, so why wouldn't we want the community college to save their money until they can do these projects? What can you buy for $2 million? How much classroom can you buy for $2 million, Dr. Heatherly? Very little.
The last classroom building that we built was over 15 years ago, the Math and Science Technology Building, and that was $10 million at that time. So you can do very little with $2 million.
So unless this board is prepared to commit to provide funding in 10, 15, $20 million increments at the same time, I don't quite understand how we can expect the community college to save up money if we're going to go back to a zero balance at the end of every year. If we're going to take them back to a zero balance, I don't know, do you have a fund balance now?
Yes, we do.
And that's in your capital? That's for capital improvements?
Yes, it is.
So, doesn't it make sense to save up $500,000 a year until you have enough money to build a building instead of coming to this board and saying, hey, we need $20 million? What do you think?
Point of order, Mr. Chairman, do we need a second to continue the discussion?
What is your, do you have a fund balance in that?
We do have a capital fund balance currently, sir, and it's approximately $8.8 or $9 million, yes. And the hope would be, and I can tell you that there are two major challenges for the community college system in North Carolina, one of which is capital needs. We have aging facilities. Right now, the most recent bond referendum that was passed through the state was in 2016. That amounts to $6.9 million for the college. We currently have that and have not spent a dime of that since 2016, knowing that we cannot build the building we need with $6.9 million. So it is the hope that we would eventually utilize that 8.8 in combination with the 6.9 to actually build the next classroom building.
Mr. Chairman, thank you, Mr. Heatherly. I think Mr. Commissioner Scott made the motion. I don't know if we got the second on that motion to get us into discussion yet. So
We didn't get a second, though.
No, but you need one to continue.
You need one to continue on.
Okay. Well, we didn't get a second, so did I hear a second on it from anybody yet?
I want to hear the motion again. What's the motion?
I believe the motion, and you correct me, but the motion that Commissioner Scott made was to deny the request to carry over the funds and to return $628,381.96 to the county. That is the motion that was made.
So we didn't get a second on that motion, so that motion dies from the lack of a second.
So no one wants to make a second.
So if somebody wants to make another motion, or do we want to hear more options from the manager on what we do and our finance director? What options do we have for the college?
Is there any way we could consider a motion that deals with things that are actually instructional in nature that would improve the quality of instruction and for the students and the professors or the...
I'm sorry to interrupt you, sir. I have not received sufficient detail to be able to, and maybe Mr. Heatherly can, but I cannot represent to the board exactly how much of the funds would be for instructional purposes.
Okay.
Well, they certainly, I'm sorry, if I may, Madam Chair, they certainly are all in support of instruction, but the examples that were given, that includes, for example, a ventilated paint room in the auto body shop, an upgraded exhaust system in automotive technology, the dental lab renovation, Georgetown training facility in renovations and improvements there, the library. Actually, what we're hoping there, or what we're asking for there, is to complete the second floor of the library has been completed. And it's a great facility. I hope that you're able to come and visit and see what your dollars have done there. But what we're requesting is to actually finish paying for that which has already been done under contract in the library. North Academic Drive, the road that connects Country Club Road to University Drive, that is now finished but not completely paid for, and we're under contract to finish paying for it. Those are the kinds of things that we're asking for here.
So all this is encumbered? And
yes.
a lot of the work's already been done.
Every penny of it. And as a matter of fact, to be completely forthcoming, since June 30, we've really already paid for a good portion of this. So if this is not approved, this in fact just reduces our operating budget for this current fiscal year.
I had questions about the carryover, and listening to Commissioner Bennett and what he's sharing, and then seeing that this is encumbered and bills are coming in.
Yes.
Give me a different outlook tonight on this. So I'm going to make the motion to approve it.
I'll second it.
Okay, we have a motion to approve, and we have a second. Now we'll get into discussion again.
I think we put them in I think we're in a tough spot with it's already encumbered. The bills are coming in. So this coastal, you're going to have to pay this regardless of whether, so it's going to come from your existing budget. I don't want to see, I don't know how to avoid this situation in the future. I don't know sure if there's an answer to that or not, but I think that becomes an issue if we're going to face this each year, is how do we do that? Which I understand the encumbering and all that. That's sometimes maybe we need to get on the front end quicker, but at the same time, contracts take a while.
It seems to me like I remember when we were in the budget process, did you present a 5-year capital plan?
Yes, we did. And that was at the county commissioner's request some years ago. Chairman Bright, you may recall that it was requested that we include what we felt our capital needs were going to be over a 5-year period, which is rather difficult to do, but we have done that now for many, many years.
So maybe we need to look closer at the capital plan that they have and try to make sure we know how we can help fund those capital needs, or what capital needs we want to help fund.
David, I'm going to ask a question. I hope you don't get upset with me, but the question I have is Bear Creek. You know,
Yes.
that's one of my pet projects that's fell by the wayside, and I'm just concerned where it's at.
It's a great question, and I would offer that it has not gone by the wayside. We were very near, approximately 1 year ago, I would say, getting the shovels in the ground, when we learned that the easement to that property is not controlled by Onslow County. It is controlled by the Department of the Navy. And we were just and it took a year to get an easement granted by the Department of the Navy, and we just realized that in the last 2 months. And so we are getting very, very close. I believe it has a lot of potential. I believe it would be a great training facility for particularly first responders. There are a lot of things that go on in BLET, as you know, in fire training, in emergency medical science, in driver training, that really cannot happen inside the city limits, up to and including another target range, which I would welcome on that facility. But yes, sir, we're very, very close. As a matter of fact, we just recently wrote a check for $12,000 to the federal government because they require that in order for them to proceed with the administration of the easement.
I wasn't aware of the easement.
The easement is required through the Department of the Navy. There's a certain portion of 172 that is apparently owned by the Navy. I don't know how far it is from the Triangle Outpost, but certainly our property is included in that.
I wanted to make sure I have clarification on this. So all of these projects are finished or they have started?
Some are finished, but all are near completion. They were well underway, even in previous fiscal years. The road, for example, that's been going on for 3 years.
So they're in various stages?
Yes.
Well, the road.
Well, you have pay applications from your contractors. You don't pay it all up front. You pay.
I get that, but I just wanted to know where we were in all of these different items.
Most of them are finished and paid for since June 3rd.
The road is finished.
The road is finished, yes. The upstairs of the library is finished, yes. There are a number of projects that are done.
What about the auto body, the automotive lab exhaust system, and the dental lab?
That's in process, not finished.
Okay, those are all in process. Okay.
Ms. Russell?
Yeah, I just wanted to ask a point of clarification. So is this money, because I thought when we talked about it, and the reason why they're confused is because what I thought we talked about was this $628,000 would be carried over into the fund balance for use on future capital projects. So how much of this is actually, you've got a purchase order out and you're waiting for final billing? That's what we call encumbered. How much of this is actually a purchase order? You haven't received the final invoice on something that you started last year and you're paying that, and how much of this is as needed encumbered or going to be rolled to the fund balance?
All of it is the former. None is to be rolled toward the. Now, there have been years when we call those monies which are not spent, not encumbered, but all of this is encumbered.
So when you say encumbered, you have actual purchase orders that have been issued?
Yes.
And you've got people billing you, but you haven't received the invoice from last year yet?
That is correct. And in many cases, with the road, for example, that does fall under the inspection of the State Construction Office. So that's time consuming. It also involves a final inspection, involves a punch list, and you cannot by law make final payments until all of that is ironed out and on file in Raleigh. That's just one example.
I think what Tim is saying, and I guess I have to agree with that, is if it's encumbered, you kind of got to pay it. I mean, if it's encumbered, I didn't understand it was encumbered. If it's encumbered and they're waiting for that to come in, I know that the road is finished, and like I said a while ago, Bear Creek's one of my, you and I have been talking about this for many, many years, and something's got to go that direction.
Yes, sir.
And you know how I feel about that. I mean, I'm a law enforcement person, and we need that facility.
And it is designed, I mean, we have spent at least $250,000 in the preparation, design, and planning phases of Bear Creek.
Well, David, I think what would help there is if you would give us those documents showing us, if that's okay to show us where you've spent, because some of us think that no money's been spent out there.
I understand.
And if we could see that in writing, it would be a very big help to this board, because I think some of us are confused over that issue.
We can do that. Yes, sir.
Thank you.
And let me, on the record, apologize to the county manager if I was not clear in my discussion with her, and I very much appreciate the time that she has spent with me. I think our meeting last month was an hour and a half, but it seemed like 10 minutes. I felt like it was a very productive meeting, and I very much appreciate her time. So I will go on record to say I may not have made it as clear as I should have, so I do apologize.
Thank you.
This really does not look good, because I'm under the impression that none of this $628,000 was incumbent, was being used.
If I did not submit a list, I thought that I did, a list detailing every single encumbrance. I thought that I did.
Because this commissioner will not roll over money. It's not going to happen. It belongs to the taxpayers, and I work for them. This makes us look bad.
I think what happened in the past, in regards to what Commissioner Bennett was talking about, that past managers has been just signing off on it.
Yes.
And Ms. Russell didn't feel comfortable about signing off with that amount of money because she felt like it should have come and been approved to the commissioners, which I agree with her totally. So that's why we are here, and that's why we're discussing this and trying to wrangle through it. And I understand encumbrance, the money being encumbered, but when you got projects that last more than 2 or 3 years, you need to have that money ready when you do get the punch orders and the final bills. I understand that. So do we have any further discussion or questions on the board? We have a motion and a second. All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion carries. All right, we're at item B. Ms. Russell?
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners. The second item is also on behalf of Coastal Carolina Community College. Again, is authorized by the same statute, 115D-32. This board provides funding to Coastal Carolina Community College. The Learning Resource Center is the name for their library. The second floor capital improvement project was recently completed, as he just stated. They are now proposing a second phase that, from my understanding, they have not started yet, of the LRC renovation on the first floor to house student support. President David Heatherly's estimated cost to renovate the first floor of the LRC is $1.965 million over the next 3 fiscal years. Of this amount, in the current budget, the budget we're in right now, we gave capital funding, and one of the line items for capital funding was this project for $352,900. That leaves an additional $1.612 million that would have to be funded in the next 2 budget years. This is new money that has not yet been considered by the Board of Commissioners, and if you'll look at the attached documents, it does indicate that all funds will come from the county. President Heatherly is asking for the Board of Commissioners to approve the project. At this time, I respectfully request the Board of Commissioners consider the approval of $1,965,000 for the second phase of the Coastal Carolina Community College LRC renovation. We would recommend also that you consider inserting a non-appropriations clause, and if approved, authorize the chairman or myself to sign on behalf of the county.
A motion?
I'll make the motion to approve.
Do I hear a second? I don't hear a second.
We've already budgeted, right?
We've already budgeted.
1.6 is not.
We've budgeted 352.9, right?
Yeah.
So my understanding of the motion would be additional 2 years beyond what we've already budgeted this year, correct?
So we have awarded capital funding for them, but not all that they wanted. Of the amount that they wanted this year, what they had asked for was $352. That doesn't mean they couldn't spend that money on something else, but the ask tonight is to commit to a 3-year project that would need $1.6 million of additional funds.
Okay, I didn't hear a second, so that motion dies. Let me ask you some clarification. This project here has not started yet, the first floor. It's not going yet.
That is correct.
And we got to be really, really careful because even though right now our fund balance is fairly healthy, but we've just been notified by the Board of Education that we got 3 $40 million schools to build. So we got to be careful about, even though this money has been approved for this year, we got to be careful about committing the board down the road for funding to $1.6 million. That's $806,000 a year for the next 2 years. So I don't think the board feels comfortable about committing that unless we have that clause that if we have the money, we can do it. But if we don't, when did you want to try to get started on this?
I would like to start immediately, but we haven't designed it. These things take time. And in order to get it designed, out for bids, and awarded, if we started tomorrow, it would be 3 months before we started any work. And that's the best case scenario.
Is this something that you can fund from your current balance and maybe get reimbursement from later if we approve it, or?
That is an option. You asked about the fund balance previously. If in fact we were in a situation where the funds just weren't there and commissioners did not feel comfortable with that, we could entertain, or at least make a recommendation that you entertain using those funds in order to support this project.
I think maybe our finance director had some input on this, Ms. Russell, didn't she?
She did. Brenda, do you want to add anything? You can approach the podium if you would like to.
Good evening, Commissioners. So these funds are not currently in the budget. The $352,900 is already in the allocation that we reserved for the community college, but the 1.6 is not.
And we do not allocate it line by line. When we present to you the budget, you give a lump sum of operating and a lump sum of capital to the community college.
So if we already got the $352,000 approved in this year's budget, so that's going to you for that particular project. So if we have the money next year, depending on, what the outlook is for our schools that we got to build, and the new schools are at least $40 million apiece.
Yes.
And right now, we would have to go to debt service to build the schools, and that takes a big chunk out of our fund balance.
Right.
And we don't know exactly what the outlook is going to be like next year. So can we tentatively, do we need a motion to tentatively approve the next 2 years for the college if we have the funding? And then if we do, can we have them submit, if we do approve it tentatively, can we have them submit a reimbursement clause to reimburse us? I mean, for us to reimburse them for the money they spend out of their fund balance?
Yes, we could do that. If you guys so choose, if the commissioners so choose, then you guys could have the project ask for reimbursement clause, and then as the project progresses, we could reimburse them for that project, the funds that were already spent.
If we have the money next year and the year after. And we're dealing with, we got another election next year, so we may be dealing with a different board, and I don't want to hamstring future boards and commitments for money that we haven't, that they may not approve. So,
right.
And I don't want the college caught up in doing a project that they may not have funding either for. So what would be the proper wording for a motion?
Isn't that what the non-appropriation clause is?
How do you?
I'd like to yield to Brett DeSelms for a moment and let him speak on the language.
Okay.
Yes, Chairman, the form that was presented to the county is it looks like it's a state form, and I think yes, Dr. Heller would say that. And what it has on there is the 1.965 as all being county appropriated monies, and that was the concern we had. A non-appropriation clause would certainly be, it would not bind another board, because if another board didn't appropriate the money, then you can get out. I don't know whether that would work for their purposes, because the state requires this form, it's my understanding, in order to get started on the matter. So that's kind of the difficult situation we're in right now, is that if the board's not looking to do this until they have some certainty, it sounds like the better course of action would be to reimburse them use their fund balance for the funds, and then we would reimburse them to the extent we're able to, as opposed to agreeing to do the full 1.965 and later on pulling out the rug from them.
But now, wouldn't the appropriate thing tonight to do, since we don't have the facts that we need, is to make a motion to deny this for right now, and then they come back to us?
I got a question. I don't know how you tentatively approve something. I just don't understand that logic. You don't, in my opinion, you don't tentatively approve something. I think there's a lot of confusion here about if, what ifs. I say we table a motion and come back with this so we can do some more fact searching or whatever it might be. Maybe I'm wrong, but I just don't feel comfortable tentatively approving something and then holding one party guilt, for this or whatever. I could be completely wrong, but it just doesn't sound right to me.
Brent, you're saying that document there has to be used?
That's what's been presented to us, and from my understanding from Dr. Heatherly, this is the state requires that. One thing in here, it says 1.965 and it just says county appropriated. So that means that we would be appropriating that much money. And if the board's not willing to make that commitment tonight, then we could always ask the community college pay for it out of their fund balance, and every year they submit reimbursement requests that would be considered by whoever's on the board at that time.
Well, right now, we've already made the motion. It wasn't seconded, so
we're starting fresh. Yep.
we're starting fresh
now.
Yes, sir.
So
That's the motion I'm looking for, to see which way we need to go. If we have a motion and a second on what we,
I make a motion to deny.
okay, we have a motion to deny. Do I have a second?
Let's put it off till we get more information. Let's get in a workshop. Let's get in a,
How about a motion to table it?
yeah, let's table.
How about a motion to table it?
Second. Motion to table, you said?
yeah,
Yeah.
same thing. You
Second, he seconded.
I didn't.
Do we have a motion and a,
Second for tabling it.
Yes.
to deny it?
No.
No, to table it.
Table it.
Come back with more information.
To table?
To table it.
Table it.
Okay. There's too many people talking at one time. I got 2 ears, but I don't have 7.
Turn your hearing aid up.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to table. Any discussion on that motion? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Opioid settlement. Mr. DeSelms.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. I know all the commissioners are aware, but the public may be aware as well, that a $26 billion, that's with the B, national settlement agreement was reached with Cardinal, McKesson, and AmerisourceBergen, the nation's 3 major pharmaceutical distributors, and Johnson & Johnson, which manufactured and marketed opioids. The agreement would resolve the claims of both states and local governments across the country, including nearly 4,000 have been filed lawsuits in the federal and state courts, which of course includes Onslow County. States and their local governments will receive maximum payments if each state and its local governments join together in support of the agreement. The national opioid settlement is expected to bring as much as $750 million to North Carolina over an 18-year period to support state and local efforts to address the epidemic, if North Carolina achieves the full participation by the subdivisions. This is in addition to the approximately $100 million from the Purdue Pharma bankruptcy plan. If the North Carolina Memorandum of Agreement, or MOA, does not become effective, North Carolina's allocation will be governed by the default allocations in the national settlement, which are far less favorable to local governments, providing as little as 15% of state settlement funds and direct payments to local governments. A committee of county representatives from throughout the state, the North Carolina Association of County Commissioners, and the North Carolina Department of Justice worked together to draft an MOA that directs the funds flowing to North Carolina to be allocated as follows: 15% to the state, which the General Assembly would appropriate to address the epidemic, 80% to local governments, including all 100 counties and 17 municipalities, an additional 5% to an incentive fund to encourage counties and large and medium-sized municipalities to sign on the agreement. As of September 1st, 2021, at least 60 local governments have signed on the MOA, and I've been in communication with Mr. Carter, the city of Jacksonville, which is the only large enough municipality to have to consider this agreement before October 1, and it's my understanding that their council will consider this tomorrow night, at their meeting tomorrow night. I have with me today Charles Ellis, who is our local counsel, and he's going to come up in just a second and answer whatever questions you may have, and also wants to give you a little bit of outlook on this. And the specific action requested is that the Board of Commissioners consider whether to participate in the settlement in North Carolina MOA, and if so, adopt a resolution approving the MOA and authorize the chairman to sign all documents necessary to facilitate the county's participation in the MOA in settlement agreement. And this is Mr. Charles Ellis.
Good evening. Charles Ellis with Ward & Smith Law Firm. Got my counsel, Harold Siegel, co-counsel with me. Brett, as you would expect, did a great job of summarizing where we are now. We've been in communication a lot with him throughout, and as you might expect, he nailed it better than I think I could have done if you were asking me to do it. But if there are any questions about that, what Brett said, the nature of the settlement now, where we are, it's not consummated yet, but we're optimistic because of the number of folks nationwide and within North Carolina who are signing on. I think it's in the best interest of the state and certainly our clients, the local governments, which include municipalities and the counties, to do so. So we'll be more than happy to answer any questions that you may have about that that Brett didn't.
I guess the only question I have, it's not for you, it's for Brett. This is your recommendation?
Oh, absolutely.
A motion to approve.
Second.
Second.
The only question I had was the attorney fees. How is that addressed in this?
We're working on that. There's a national fee fund with the executive committee, with the plaintiff executive committee attorneys, if they, and we're not on the executive committee, but one of the signatories to the contract with Onslow County and the city of Jacksonville is. They are bound by that. They are bound by that fund. Okay, they take that, and it's significantly lower than the fee agreement with you all is. There is a cap that the judge, and this is a multi-district litigation, so there's an orders issued by the judge apply to all the cases. This happens to be an order issued with respect to the distributor settlement agreement, caps it, the percentage, no matter what, whether it's out of the fee fund in conjunction with contingency fee funds pursuant to the contracts, of 15% of the total that each of the local governments and states receive. So we're working with Josh Stein, the Attorney General at this point, to try to establish what every other state who is a party to this settlement has done, which is a backstop fee fund, and we've been which would result in a total waiver of the contractual obligations, which are 25%, but by court order down to 15%. But the backstop fee fund would lower it even more than that. And the advantage to the backstop fee fund, and it's complicated where we are now, Brett, we've been having communications about this for a month and a half now, since we've gotten close to resolving this piece of it. But the backstop fee fund, what it does is it provides that the non-litigating counties and municipalities, all of whom are going to benefit from what you did and what the city of Jacksonville did and what numerous other litigating counties and cities have done, that participate in the lawsuit to initiate it, that they don't have a free ride, that they pay their fair share of those fees rather than having just the litigating counties and municipalities do that. But does that help you?
Well, my question being, does that fee come out of the 80% sent to local governments, or does it come out beforehand?
The national fee fund comes off the top of the $26 billion.
Okay, before any distribution to local governments.
That's correct. That's only $2 billion that goes nationwide to all the state attorneys general for their use, for outside counsel and for themselves. And then for all the council who have been involved in all representation of all the counties throughout the country, all the municipalities throughout the country who have litigated. But again, the non-litigating entities get the benefit of the money. So for example, Raleigh, and Harold Siegel can address the specifics of this, but the city of Raleigh, Wake County didn't litigate. And yet they're receiving, under the MOA, they're receiving just as much as based on the criteria used to form the MOA as the litigating entities would.
So it sounds like more of the lawyers' fees are going to come from the non-litigating local governments. Is that what you're saying?
No, they're going to come from the litigating local governments. That's what the backstop fund is. We're working on to try to effectuate that, which would mean that when the money comes into North Carolina, Brett touched on $750 million, it's $750, $764, that off the top of that, much like the national fund, off the top of that, before it even comes into North Carolina, there is a significantly reduced percentage off the top, so that the effect of that is that the non-litigating entities are paying their pro rata share rather than the litigating entities having to do it.
When will we realize any funding from that? How soon do you think?
That's being worked on, but it's an 18-year period of payouts, but it's front-end loaded. And Harold, you might be more familiar with the specifics of the payment, at least as proposed now. So this is Harold Siegel.
Is it a 10-year payout?
18 years.
18 years. So whatever fund that we'll get will come in a period of 18 years?
It's my understanding, yes, but it's front-end loaded, and this is only as to the 4 settling defendants or other defendants in the lawsuit.
Is it based on population or the number of prescriptions that were?
That's great. The criteria there are 3 criteria used to determine how much money came to North Carolina, and then how the MOA distributes the money within North Carolina once it gets here between the counties and the municipalities. It is the number of opioid disorder diagnoses, the number of opioid deaths, the amount of opioids purchased in that particular government jurisdiction, the amount of opioid use.
Okay.
Yep. Harold, do you want to add something to the payout?
Well, as far as the payout, it is a rather complicated process. Mr. DeSelms has certainly spent a lot of time working with this, and we've enjoyed working with him on it. But there's a lot still in the works. There's a lot of uncertainty so far. The certainty we have at this stage is that the state's approval, each of the state attorneys general, that all that are necessary to put the settlement into effect with these defendants, we've got a sufficient number of states agreed now. We're now to the point of having local governments in each state called upon to approve. And that's one of the things that's on your agenda tonight for approval. And certainly we believe the settlement should be approved. No question about that. As far as the payout and the structure, it is conditioned in large part on the number of governments who go along, who agree to go along with the settlement. As you might expect, the defendants have put rather extreme penalties into the settlement for the number of, if there's some number of counties or cities who do not agree to go along, the total settlement drops dramatically if we lose a few counties. So certainly we want to have the counties approved. We want to have the cities that have litigated approved. And we are comfortable that that's going to be done. The amount of money coming into North Carolina, the $26 billion and the amount coming into North Carolina, that is predicated on 100% approval. We hope to get that in North Carolina. We hope to get all of the money into North Carolina. And let me just say one further thing. I want to volunteer this. No one asked me, but it's something that I just realized as I was coming here. This is a point of passage in what is now the biggest civil action in history, what you've done. And I think it's really important that you hear this. In the 25 years that this epidemic's been going on and getting up to 70,000 people a year dying from these drugs, now more, much more, with COVID mixed in with this and the effect it's had. The federal government and the state governments have been unable to do anything meaningful to reverse this trend. What you've done and other counties, and you folks have been incredible. Onslow County is one of the first and one of the best we've dealt with. Incredible response, incredible support that we've had. But the big picture is, in all of the country, what you've done local government, you folks around here, you stood up to call out the biggest companies in the world. No one else has done anything to stop that. There have been little things done, but nothing meaningful has changed the course of this epidemic until now. And what you've done, the amount of money that's coming in, no one's asked for the number. Mr. DeSelms, I expect you've given them the number. But when you look at the number of millions of dollars coming into Onslow County, what I would like you to keep in mind, and what I want everyone in this country to keep in mind, is that that amount of money coming into Onslow County is just like the millions of dollars going into other counties all over North Carolina. And it's not just North Carolina, it's all over the United States. The defendant said they didn't want to settle if they couldn't buy their piece. We went to the judge who's managing this MDL, and we asked him, can we certify a class so everyone in the country can share in the reward? If we're successful, we want to share it with everyone. We want that to happen. He allowed it to happen. The Sixth Circuit reversed it, but it is that model that has made it possible for this settlement, and this settlement is going to produce that kind of money for counties all across the country, over 30,000. You know, our groups are representing several hundred local governments like you, and I think 15 sovereign Indian nations. But it's what you folks did that has made that happen for all these folks all over the country, and it is changing behavior. It has changed the course of this epidemic, and I just wanted to acknowledge that to you. You folks need to be very proud of what you've done. It's remarkable. In all the years I've been doing this, I've never seen anything like it, well, and I commend you for it.
Well, thank you, sir, and thank you for
we can make sure that your questions are answered, because I want to make sure.
Oh, yeah, you got answered all right.
Okay. All right.
We have a...
Are there any other questions? We want to make sure we don't leave you without...
We have a motion and a second already. All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion carries. Thank you, gentlemen.
Yes, sir. May I just, point of privilege, the leadership, Harold spoke about this, but leadership of Onslow County is huge in this process because you were one of the first counties to jump out, and you led the way, and as a result, numerous other North Carolina counties followed you, and municipalities, and we wouldn't be talking about how to distribute money if you hadn't done that. So it took great leadership for you all and for Brett, and also my paralegal who was leading the staff on this plainest fact sheet responses that we had to prepare from all the counties and municipalities in North Carolina would kill me if I didn't say that. I've never met Ms. Russell, but my paralegal has, and Brett assimilated a lot of documentation on damages. And my paralegal said Jacksonville, the city of Jacksonville, and Onslow County were the best in the entire state of North Carolina with doing it with organization, timeliness, responsiveness, and substance. Thank you for that. That made our job a lot easier, too.
Okay, we're going to take a short break. I'll be back in 10 minutes. Call the meeting back to order. Our next item of business is Section D, tax software contract. Mr. Harry Smith.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners. Recently, Onslow County released a request for proposals for a complete tax billing, collections, land records, and CAMA system, which is computer-assisted mass appraisal software system to replace our existing Tyler system. A selection committee was formed, and after reviewing the proposals, interviewing the firms, and conducting site visits, the committee selected Bitech LLC to provide the complete system, which included those modules. We feel like the Bitech system will provide a number of features that will provide notable improvements over our current system, such as more comprehensive reports, address validation through the Postal Service address database, automated delinquent collections processes, integrated workflows, and GIS integration tools to help out our reappraisals. And there's also an associated project ordinance provided for your consideration. And before I read the specific action request, I did want to note that due to the annual software support savings, this system will actually recoup the cost of this system in 5.5 to 6 years. With having said that, we respectfully request that the Board of Commissioners approve the contract with Bitech LLC in the amount of $594,500, approve the project ordinance, and authorize the chairman to sign on behalf of the county. And with that, I'll be glad to answer any questions that you may have.
I guess it's in the budget, correct?
With the project ordinance is necessary to carry it over to complete the funding in next year's budget. We have $400,000 currently in the budget, and the total project is $594,500, and the project ordinance will allow us to carry it over to pay for it over 2 budget cycles.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any discussion? I just got one question. This doesn't have anything to do with the credit card payments, does it? Or is the percentage that they charge, or are we still exploring that?
We're still sort of exploring that. It's not associated with it. There is an integration built into this system that will allow that data to flow over to whichever credit card processor we have so they'll be able to add items in their shopping cart, but it's really a separate issue.
Okay. We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion or questions? All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion carries. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Section E, advanced equity. That's Ms. Hoover.
Good evening, Chairman, Vice Chairman, and Commissioners. The first item that I have for you tonight is Agreement Addenda 466, entitled Advancing Equity. To start with, this is an agreement addenda that is given to us by the Division of Public Health from North Carolina. It's given to each health department in the state. And why advancing equity? And that's because advancing equity, or health equity, is at the center of the 10 essential public health services. These 10 essential health services were revised in 2020 and now have equity at the center of all of the services that we provide in public health. Specifically, this agreement addenda outlines with it the services that we would be required to provide, and it aims these services at historically marginalized populations. Historically marginalized populations are often identified based on race, ethnicity, socioeconomic status, geography, religion, language, sexual identity, or disability status. This agreement addenda seeks to advance equity in the relationship to COVID-19. So it goes on to point out that historically marginalized populations have experienced risk factors that put them at greater risk for severe disease and death associated with COVID-19. Historically marginalized populations typically are more likely to have underlying health conditions such as chronic lung disease, cardiovascular disease, obesity, diabetes, and kidney disease. And we also know that 70% of the adults in North Carolina are at higher risk for severe illness due to COVID-19 because of advanced age. So those individuals who are in historically marginalized populations and older age are even at greater risk of death and disability due to COVID-19. One of the reasons that we started our COVID vaccination efforts with the older population is because they make up greater than 50% of the deaths associated with COVID-19, although we know our over 65 population does not make up over 50% of the overall population. That's one of the strategies or one of the rationales of why we aim some of our public health efforts associated with preventing COVID-19 and preventing severe disease and death at certain populations. It is respectfully requested that the Board of Commissioners allow us to accept this agreement addenda in the amount of $39,900 to address COVID-19 related health disparities and advance health equity by allowing the health departments to expand capacity and services in the prevention and transmission of COVID-19 in historically marginalized populations. This funding does not require any county match, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Motion?
Motion to table this item until the language can be revised, and I'll discuss that in greater detail if we have a second.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor of the motion to table signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries.
The information that we have under letter E, advancing equity, says the 10 essential public health services describe the public health activities that all communities should undertake. But this is the sentence that popped for me. This new focus on health equity pushes us to promote policy systems and overall community conditions that enable optimal health for all and seeks to remove systemic and structural barriers that have resulted in health inequities. My problem is that I don't mind advancing equity because that's the language of improvement. And we all know in any institution, you need to improve. You don't arrive at the pinnacle on day one. You got to get better every day. Coaches know that. We coach that let's get better every day. So obviously we need to improve, but that's not the language used in here. It's to remove systemic and structural barriers that have resulted in health inequities, and that all communities should undertake that. So that implies, the implication of that language is clear, is that we have systemic and structural barriers in Onslow County healthcare. And I just reject that. I don't think that is true. I think we try to provide assistance and care to everyone. If that is the case, what are these structural and systemic barriers that are in Onslow County? Yes, ma'am. That's a question.
That is a question directed to me?
Yes,
sir. So that language is part of the national framework put out by the CDC for the 10 essential public health services that are intended for use by all communities, including those communities beyond Onslow County. So this is not language that we have necessarily authored. This is the language that has been selected by the Centers for Disease Control in part of the, the policies and programs that boards of health and county commissioners like you guys put into place that would support improving health factors, that would support improving health outcomes. So those barriers that you speak of would be things like poverty, racism, gender discrimination, ableism, or preferring able-bodied people over others, and other forms of oppression. That also is language that comes directly from the CDC and is not specific necessarily to Onslow County, but is part of the framework of how public health has centered its 10 essential public health services.
This is a language, for me, this is a language which is a language of division, which tries to get all 100 counties to acknowledge that they have systemic structural barriers that have resulted in health inequities. And systemic means ingrained, and I take that to mean barriers erected intentionally to deny people service. I don't think that's here. If it is here, we should all resign. Because we're not doing our jobs, and that probably means you're not doing your job either if it's here. And it is basically an indictment of the entire healthcare community if that's the case.
Are you seeking a response?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so what I would say is that we know that there are health factors that have been exacerbated by years of ways of how healthcare has been structured. So I do not think that we have specifics here in Onslow County that we are pointing to or that we are wanting to highlight of how things are done wrong. I think quite the contrary. I think you all exist here as this board to try to promote optimal health and wellness in our community and in our county. I think that every healthcare provider that we have is aiming towards that same goal. Funding like this is intended to help disadvantaged populations that we know have health disparities and have greater obstacles to overcome. That's why this funding exists. That's where we try to aim some of our services, is to try to enable them to achieve the same optimal health and wellness that we want everyone to have, knowing that some are at a position of disadvantage.
The way I read it, it's asking us to slit our own throats, and then we'll give us $39,900 for doing that. Say you're doing a terrible job, and then we'll give you $39,900 so you'll do a less terrible job than what you're doing. And I just categorically reject that and say that it's obviously politically driven, it's politically motivated. That word systemic is a loaded word, and it just, and structural barriers. Problems are temporary. They can be overcome. They can be worked on. Barriers are solid and in place and have to be torn down through a radical restructuring. And so this is radical language, which I can't vote for. So,
okay, so we have it tabled, so we just need to move on.
Yeah.
Item F, I think that's yours also, Ms. Hoover.
Yes, sir. The next item is Foundation for Health Leadership and Innovation Program Participation. The Onslow County Health Department was selected to participate in a quality improvement program focused on improving programming in health departments. For our participation, we were given a stipend of $10,000 that has no strings attached, requires no county match. Therefore, it's respectfully requested that the Board of Commissioners accept this funding in the amount of $10,000 for participation in this program and allow staff to complete necessary documentation to allocate these funds in support of this effort.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
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 All opposed? Motion carries. Section G, land purchase, that was removed from the agenda. Next item is Section A, County Jury Commission appointment. Ms. Russell.
Thank you so much, Chairman Bright and Commissioners. We do have one appointment this evening. The Onslow County Jury Commission consists of 3 members. 1 member is appointed by the Senior Resident Superior Court Judge, 1 by the Clerk of Superior Court, and 1 by this Board of Commissioners. Ms. Deborah T. Barnes has expressed an interest in continuing her service as the Commissioner Representative and has provided a citizen participation application. No other individuals expressed an interest, and this application is on file and has been certified by the Clerk's Office. I respectfully request that the Board of Commissioners consider the reappointment of Ms. Deborah T. Barnes as the Commissioner Representative for a 2-year term expiring June 30th, 2023.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
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 All opposed, motion carries. Consent agenda, we didn't have anything located to the back, so now we'll move to Ms. Russell's comments, County Manager, on item 8.
Thank you so much, Chairman Bright and Commissioners. I would ask for clarification to start out on the items that have been tabled on item 5B. Do I understand the board correctly that we want to try to put a non-appropriations clause in the current document that was received from the state? Is that our instruction on that?
That would be correct, I believe.
Okay. And then the second point of clarification on the advancing equity issue, obviously it seems that the problem was with the state and not with our wonderful public health director. And our goal there is to remove the language, quote, systemic and structural barriers from anything that has to be signed by the Board of Commissioners. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. I just want to make sure we do what the board is asking. I would like to formally welcome a wonderful new employee, Jason Jones. He's our new EMS division head. and I look forward to having all of you meet him very soon. We're very lucky to have him, and he has already hit the ground running. In addition, some good news tonight. I think we all could use some good news. We did receive at the end of the day today a $363,107 check from FEMA for Hurricane Florence. So yes, persistence pays off. We are still waiting for $996,000, and then we will be done with our friends at FEMA for Hurricane Florence, which was 3 years ago as of last week. The other thing I have to share is not good news. We have had, unfortunately, 3 new fatalities from COVID-19 since Thursday. So it seems like just in a few days, once again, we have lost more Onslow County residents. Unfortunately, 2 were over the age of 65 and 1 was younger than 65. And our condolences definitely go to the friends and family of all of those that we've lost, 221 citizens so far of Onslow County. In addition, we've had 321 newly diagnosed positive COVID-19 cases since Thursday. This brings us to 27,422. Onslow County is currently at 15.3% positive. The state's only at 10.3% positive. In good news, we're almost at the same state level for vaccination now. Of our Onslow County residents, 110,291 have now had at least 1 dose of vaccination, which is 55.7%. So that is encouraging. We do have 5 open outbreaks and clusters in Onslow County. So people, please continue to safeguard your health. That's all I have for this evening, unless you have questions of me. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ms. Russell. We'll move on to commissioner comments. I think Mr. Bennett, I believe you're next.
I don't know, but I'll take it.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. There's been a lot of concern in Onslow County about the Town Center Apartments, formerly known as New River Apartments. This board has allocated up to $5 million to help with affordable housing in Onslow County. But I'm able to announce tonight that today the city of Jacksonville announced that they are extending the deadline for vacating Town Center Apartments to December the 31st. So that gives people a few more months to find another place to go. Also, Onslow Community Outreach is taking the lead to help people who need help moving. They have city money that's been allocated to help people who need to move inside the city, but that money can't be used for people who need to move to an apartment or house that's outside the city limits. So Onslow Strong Disaster Recovery Alliance has stepped up and appropriated $20,000. I wish we had $20 million, but $20,000 to help those people who need to move to a location that's not in the city limits. So I would encourage you, if you're if you know someone who currently lives in Town Center Apartments who needs to move out, who has a place to go, that needs help with moving expenses, to go to Onslow Community Outreach. They can take your application and direct you to the correct organization to get help moving. So, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Commissioner Buchanan.
Thank everybody for being here. I don't have anything this evening. Thank you.
Commissioner Price.
Last Tuesday, I enjoyed attending the Minority Enterprise Development Week Awards Luncheon. It was a good time, and the honorees for the Linda L. Richardson Minority Business Advocate of the Year was Miss Wendy Fletcher Hardy, the owner of Atlantic Coast Trucking. Also, the Minority Entrepreneur of the Year award went to Miss Arthene Saunders Thomas, owner of Uniquely You Photographs. So I enjoyed being with them, and I trust that you've had a good day and will have a good evening. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Scott.
I thank you for the opportunity of being here. We'll see you next time.
Thank you. Vice Chairman Foster.
I appreciate Mr. Heatherly being here tonight. Our community college is one of the bright lights in Onslow County and across the nation, or across the state, and creates lots of opportunity for our citizens. And I want to make sure that we're able to get all those things right as we move forward with some of the decisions we made tonight and what we're asking the county manager and everyone to go out and work on. I also want to take a moment to thank Ms. Hoover. She's done an excellent job. We've already acknowledged that, I think, at our last meeting, and that was the 11 o'clock meeting. So at 6 o'clock, that's going later tonight, I want to acknowledge that again, because I think you've done a great job in working to get through some of the barriers that exist from people, for whatever reason, not being able to get their vaccination. So I understand where Mr. Price is coming from with that, and we go to work on that. I think that verbiage that may have to change is to acknowledge that Onslow County's done a really good job of going out to the people, of working to get everyone an opportunity for a vaccination. I don't know what everybody else is doing, but I do know what Onslow County's been doing and Ms. Hoover has been doing, so I appreciate that. Other than that, I appreciate you being out here tonight and hope you have a wonderful evening, what's left of it.
Thank you, Vice Chair. I want to thank all the speakers for coming in and speaking tonight. I want to address one person that spoke that claimed that we were trying to hide stuff, and that's not true on the purchase of the building. We do what we can to be transparent, and we've done our due diligence in being transparent. And I appreciate you speaking, but I think you need to get your facts right when you come up here before this board. Other than that, I'd like to make a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
We adjourn.